Good morning, everyone. Last two lectures we have discussed the environmental economics and demography part. In that, firstly, we have to discuss the environment as a public good. पर्यावरण हे कशा पद्धतीने सार्वजनिक वस्तू आहे. And then we have to discuss the market failure, Coase theorem. Last lecture we have discussed the cost benefit analysis and the compensation criteria. And today we will discuss the valuation of environmental good. How the valuation method and the valuation techniques regarding the environmental valuation methods. So the environmental valuation method, in that it is concerned with the analysis of methods of obtaining the empirical estimate of the environment values, such as the benefits of improved the river water quality, or the cost of losing an area of wilderness to development. The most commonly used approach is based on the concept of total economic value. ज्यावेळी आपण पर्यावरणीय मूल्यांकन म्हणतो किंवा पर्यावरणीय मूल्यांकनाच्या मेथड्स बघतो किंवा त्याच्या टेक्निक्स बघतो, त्याच्या अगोदर आपल्याला टोटल इकॉनॉमिक व्हॅल्यू म्हणजे एकूण जे काही आर्थिक मूल्य आहे, तर ते एकूण आर्थिक मूल्य काय आहे त्याची कॉन्सेप्ट अभ्यासणं गरजेचं आहे. किंवा आपण जर टोटल इकॉनॉमिक व्हॅल्यू म्हणतो तर त्याचा फॉर्म्युला काय आहे, ते कशापासून डिराईव्ह होतं, त्याच्यामध्ये कोणते कोणते कंटेंट्स येतात, या गोष्टीचा विचार करणं गरजेचं आहे. So the environmental valuation methods, in that the total economic value is generally decomposed into three categories of values. So when we discuss the environmental economic value, that is decomposed into three categories of values. Which are they? In that, direct use value, ज्याला आपण प्रत्यक्ष उपयोगिता मूल्य म्हणतो. इनडायरेक्ट यूज व्हॅल्यू, इनडायरेक्ट अप्रत्यक्ष उपयोगिता मूल्य किंवा उपयोग मूल्य, and non-use value. The former two categories are sometimes collectively referred to as the use value. So, when we discuss the environmental values, the direct use value is derived from goods which can be extracted, consumed, or directly enjoyed. Direct use value याला म्हणतो की जे गुड्स आहेत ज्याच्यापासून मिळणारे जे काही कन्झम्पशन आहे ते आपल्याला डायरेक्टली एन्जॉय करता येतं. सो इट इज ऑल्सो नोन ॲज द कन्झम्प्टिव्ह यूज व्हॅल्यू. Indirect use value is referred to a non-extractive use value that derive from the services that an environmental resources provided. For example, sun. Non-use values are defined as those benefits or welfare gains or losses to individuals that arise from the environmental changes, independently of any direct or indirect use of environment. So this categories can be further subdivided into option value and existence value. Option value, that means आपण त्याला म्हणतो पर्यायी मूल्य, आणि अस्तित्व मूल्य, फार काळापासून टिकून असलेलं एक चिरंतर मूल्य म्हणजे अस्तित्व मूल्य. So what is meant by the option value? The option value is the assessment of value attached to an option that would be available in the future. That option is available in the future, that is called the option value. For example, once biodiversity is lost at the expense of development, the possibility of benefiting from it's gone forever. What is meant by the option value? Once biodiversity is lost at the expense of the development, the possibility of benefiting from it gone forever. एकदा जर आपली जैवविविधता याचा नाश झाला तर मग त्याचा जो काही आपल्याला मिळणारा बेनिफिट आहे तो सुद्धा लवकर मिळणार नाही. त्याला आपण ऑप्शन व्हॅल्यू म्हणू शकतो. Another one is the existence value. What is meant by the existence value? Can be defined in the various ways. Most definition, however, contain two main components, which are the pure existence value and another one is the biggest value. So what is meant by the pure existence value? The very existence of the environmental assets are valuable. These values are intrinsic in nature. It is very extensive of the environmental asset are valuable. These values are intrinsic in nature. म्हणजे या ज्या व्हॅल्यू आहेत ते निसर्गाशी अंतरक व्हॅल्यू मूल्य असतात, आंतरिक मूल्य असतात. Then biggest value. Biggest value, our desire to preserve the environment for the relatives and friends and also for other people living today and future generation, so that they may benefit from the conservation of the environment. What is meant by the biggest value? Biggest value म्हणजे असे मूल्य की आपले एक इच्छा असते की पुढे येणारे किंवा भविष्यात जे काही फ्रेंड्स आहेत, रिलेटिव्ह आहेत, तर त्यांच्यासाठी आपण पर्यावरणाचं रक्षण केलं पाहिजे. दॅट व्हॅल्यू इज कॉल्ड द बिगेस्ट व्हॅल्यू. सो when we discuss the formula of the total economic value, एकूण आर्थिक मूल्य, that is equal to direct and indirect use values plus option values plus existence value. म्हणजे प्रत्यक्ष मूल्य, अप्रत्यक्ष मूल्य प्लस पर्यायी मूल्य आणि अस्तित्व मूल्य. तर या सगळ्यांचं ज्यावेळी आपण ऍडिशन करतो तर त्यावेळी आपल्याला टोटल इकॉनॉमिक व्हॅल्यू हे मिळणार आहे. दिस इज द फॉर्म्युला ऑफ द टोटल इकॉनॉमिक व्हॅल्यू. सो व्हेन वी go through the types of the environmental valuation techniques, in that basically the two types are there. Which are they? We can see. Environmental valuation technique can be broadly classified into two categories. Which are they? Revealed preference, that is RP, and another one is the stated preference, that is ESP. Means you have to understand the RP and ESP. RP for revealed preference and the ESP for stated preference. So the revealed preference approaches make use of individuals' behavior in actual or simulated markets to infer the value of environmental goods or services. It means this revealed preference approach make use of individuals' behavior in the actual markets to infer the value of environmental goods or services. For example, the value of wilderness area may be inferred by the expenditure that recreationist incurred in the travel to area. Then what is meant by the stated preference method? The stated preference methods attempt to elicit environmental values directly from the respondents using survey techniques. So in the stated preference, we have to use the survey techniques. This is the bifurcation of the environmental valuation techniques. So preferences, in that revealed preference is there and another one is the stated preference. In revealed preference, they are divided into two categories, which are the market-based revealed preference and another one is the surrogate revealed preference. In market-based revealed preference, there is the factor of production, producer or consumer surplus and defensive expenditures. In the surrogate markets, there is the hedonic pricing and travel cost. Another part is the stated preference. In the stated preference, non-market based. First is the market based. Here the stated is the non-market based. For example, contingent valuation and choice experiments. So we will discuss one by one. So revealed preference approach. observes the actions within the surrogate market, for example, travel, house pricing, etc. Taken in the response to the environment changes. It taken the response to environment changes, largely restricted to use values. This revealed preference is restricted to use values. For example, travel cost method, hedonic price method, etc. So, what is the hedonic price method? Used to estimate It is used to estimate the quantitative values for the environmental or ecosystem services. Hedonic खर्च पद्धती कशाला म्हणतो आपण? ही जी पद्धती आहे तर ती एक क्वांटिटेटिव्ह मेथड आहे, संख्यात्मक पद्धती आहे जी की इन्व्हायरमेंटल आणि इकोसिस्टीम सर्व्हिसेस आहे तर त्याचं कॅल्क्युलेशन करण्याची. सो स्टेटेड प्रेफरन्स अप्रोच attempts to elicit preference by the experiments or questionnaires. We can take the questionnaire from the people and you can give the preference from the experiment level. So for example, the contingent valuation method, choice experiment, etc. Market base. The place monetary values on the goods and services. Market base is the place where the monetary values on the goods and services reveal their preferences through the choices they make in the allocating scarce resources among the competitive alternatives. An individual's willingness to pay to acquire or preserve the environmental services. So market base is a particular place where the monetary values of goods and services, then it is, if the scarce resources is there, they can choices to make the allocating. Another one is the factor. This is the types of market based. There are many types of market base in that the factor of production, उत्पादनाचे घटक ज्याला आपण म्हणतो, the direct value as a factor of production and the impact of environment degradation. For example, a desaling in water quality could have a direct and detrimental impact on the productivity and the health of the shellfish bed. This is the direct value of the particular factor of production. This impact the environmental degradation, ज्याला आपण म्हणतो की पर्यावरणाचा जो काही ऱ्हास होत आहे तर याच्यावर परिणाम करणारी किंवा डायरेक्ट परिणाम करणारी जी काही मेथड म्हणली जाते तर ती आहे फॅक्टर ऑफ प्रोडक्शन मेथड. What is the limitation? It is limited to those resources that are used in the production process of the goods and services which sold in a market. Another method is the producers or consumer surplus. What is meant by the consumer surplus? The consumer surplus is the difference between what each customer is willing to pay and the price of the good or services. What each customer is willing to pay and the price of goods and services. म्हणजे जे काही कस्टमर्स आहेत ते त्यांची एखाद्या वस्तूबद्दल पे करण्याची जी काही क्षमता आहे, इच्छा आहे, तर ती यामध्ये स्पष्ट केली जाते. सो द प्रोड्युसर सरप्लस इज द डिफरन्स बिटवीन what a producer is paid for a good or service and what is cost to supply. The cost of supply and the producer willing to pay for the good and service, this difference is known as the producer surplus. Another is the defensive expenditure made on the part of industry and the public either to prevent or to counteract and adverse effect of the pollution or the other environmental stresses. monitorize and environmental externalities by measuring the resources expended to avoid its negative impact on the surrounding community. This method is avoid the negative impact on the surrounding community. The type of defensive expenditure include the water purification devices, beach nourishment, afforestation, and the lake restoration, etc. These are some type of the defensive expenditure. So these are the valuation of environmental goods. So when we discuss the valuation of environment goods, in that the total economic value is there. We can see that the total economic value means what? All the values which add up in the particular thing. Then we have discussed the rival preference. In that rival preference, we have discussed the market base and another one is surrogate base. In market base, we have discussed the factor of production, producer or consumer surplus, defensive expenditure, etc. And surrogate market, in that we have to discuss the hedonic pricing, travel cost, etc. So now we will go through the theory, which is very popular theory related to the theories of population. The theories of population is very important part of our syllabus. ज्यावेळी आपण सेट किंवा नेटच्या दृष्टीने बघतोय तर त्यामध्ये पॉप्युलेशनच्या थेरी विचारल्या जातात आणि बेसिकली यामध्ये जे काही क्रोनॉलॉजिकल ऑर्डर ऑफ दॅट पर्टिक्युलर थेरी or the particular concept of that particular theory, how the diagram is derived. This type of question is asked in the exam. So we will discuss the Malthus theory of population. Firstly, we have to know that who is the Malthus and what is the particular history of Malthus. Malthus, who is born on 13 Feb 1766 and died on 23 December 1834. His contribution in the particular environmental economic and demography is Malthusian growth model. He shows the Malthusian growth model. The concept is geometric rate and arithmetic rate. And his famous two books are there. For example, first is an essay on principle of population. An essay on principle of population, and another one, principle of political economy. So you have to understand which book is written by whom. म्हणजे आपल्याला तुम्ही जर मागचे प्रिव्हियस इयरचे क्वेश्चन पेपर अनालिसिस केला तर त्यामध्ये तुम्हाला दिसून येईल की बुक्स दिलेले आहेत आणि बुक्सचे रायटर्स कोण आहेत किंवा कमिटीज दिलेले आहेत आणि कमिटीज कोणत्या संदर्भात आहेत किंवा कॉन्सेप्ट काय आहे कमिटीची. तर असे क्वेश्चन्स हे रॅन्डमली विचारले जातात. सो दोन बुक जे आहेत ते फेमस बुक माल्थसचे आहेत. फर्स्ट जो आहे तो अन एसे ऑन प्रिन्सिपल ऑफ पॉप्युलेशन अँड अनदर वन इज द प्रिन्सिपल ऑफ पॉलिटिकल इकॉनॉमी. म्हणजे so we will discuss the Malthus theory of population growth. In 1798, the Thomas Malthus published his views on the effect of population on food supply. What is the effect of population on the food supply? म्हणजे लोकसंख्या जो आहे तर लोकसंख्येचा अन्नधान्याच्या पुरवठ्यावर कशा पद्धतीने परिणाम पडत असतो किंवा होतो याचं जे काही विश्लेषण आहे तर 1798 मध्ये माल्थस यांनी सांगितलेलं आहे. His theory has two principles. Which two principles are there? First principle is population grows at the geometric rate. For example, 1, 2, 4, 16, 32, etc. म्हणजे जी काही लोकसंख्या आहे तर ती भौमितिक दराने वाढत आहे. And food production increase at an arithmetic ways किंवा arithmetic rate. फॉर एक्झाम्पल 1, 2, 3, 4 एक्सेट्रा. म्हणजे भूमितीय दृष्टिकोनातून किंवा भौमितिक रेटने दराने हे पॉप्युलेशन वाढत आहे म्हणजे गुणाकाराच्या पद्धतीने आणि फूड प्रोडक्शन जे आहे तर ते फूड प्रोडक्शन हे बीजगणिताच्या स्वरूपात वाढत आहे, म्हणजे 1, 2, 3 च्या रूपात. दॅट इज द मेन कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ द माल्थस theory of population growth. The consequences of these two principles is that eventually population will exceed the capacity of the agriculture to support the new population numbers. The population would rise until a limit to growth was reached. Further growth would be limited when preventive checks. Two checks are there. Which are they? Preventive checks and positive checks. Preventive checks, postponement of marriage. How we can go to the preventive checks? We can postpone the marriage, that is lowering of fertility rate, increase the cost of food. म्हणजे ज्यावेळी आपण प्रिव्हेंटिव्ह चेक्स देतोय पॉप्युलेशनला, तर एक प्रकारे मॅरेज पोस्टपोनमेंट केलं पाहिजे, किंवा वी कॅन इन्क्रीज द कॉस्ट ऑफ फूड. Then the people have to go to decrease the population. So when postponement marriage because of lowering the fertility rate. Then another check is the positive check. For example, it is related to the nature. The famine condition, war condition, disease would increase the death rate. म्हणजे पॉझिटिव्ह चेक जो आहे पॉप्युलेशनच्या दृष्टीने तो नॅचरल रेट असतो किंवा नॅचरल असतो, की एखादी जर दुष्काळ सदृश्य परिस्थिती आली किंवा युद्ध झाले किंवा खूप मोठी महामारी आली, तर तिथे जो काही पॉप्युलेशन ग्रोथ आहे तर तो कमी होणार आहे, याचाच अर्थ डेथ रेट हा वाढणार आहे. दॅट इज कॉल्ड द पॉझिटिव्ह चेक्स. अँड प्रिव्हेंटिव्ह चेक्स मीन्स वी हॅव टू प्रिव्हेंट सम चेक अकॉर्डिंग टू reduce the population. In that we have to increase the cost of particular food or maybe postpone the marriages, etc. The Malthusian idea are often supported by the Western government because it highlights the problem of too many mouths to feed rather than the uneven distribution of resources. So this is the Malthusian population growth. Here the y-axis shows the population and the x-axis shows the time period of the particular period. So the curve showing the population growth is geometrically, and we know that the population is grow in geometrically in nature and the food supply is grow in arithmetically in nature. So the parallel line to x-axis shows that the carrying capacity of the particular human being, and another one upside curve showing the population exceed carrying capacity, and this last curve shows that the population is kept in check. We know that the preventive check, which is man-made, and positive checks, which is natural. So this diagram is show the population grows geometrically. This is how the Malthusian population growth model or population growth theory. So माल्थसची ग्रोथ थेअरी बघत असताना त्याच्यामधल्या दोन कॉन्सेप्ट तुम्हाला बघायचे. एक आहे ते म्हणजे पॉप्युलेशन हे जॉमेट्रिक वेने वाढत असतं आणि जे काही फूड सप्लाय आहे, अन्नधान्याचा सप्लाय हा बीजगणिताच्या स्वरूपात वाढत असतो. Then the demographic transition model. What is meant by the demographic transition model? The model of the demographic transition suggested that the population's mortality and fertility would decline as a result of the social and economic development. Demographic transition model, ज्याला आपण लोकसंख्या संक्रमण सिद्धांत म्हणतो. लोकसंख्या संक्रमण सिद्धांतामध्ये जे काही डेमोग्राफिक चेंजेस झाले, म्हणजे पहिल्यांदाच द डेमोग्राफिक transition model shows the 4 stages of population. In that, firstly the high stationary stage, then early expanding stage, then here the another knife expanding stage, and last stage is there where the all birth and death rate is low. So, the model of demographic transition suggests that the population's mortality and fertility would decline as a result of social and economic development. ज्यावेळी फर्टिलिटी किंवा मोर्टॅलिटी ही कमी होणार आहे, त्याचाच रिझल्ट हा काय असणार आहे की आर्थिक आणि सामाजिक जी डेव्हलपमेंट आहे ती लवकर होणार आहे. It predicted that the countries would over time to grow four democratic transition. This figure is show the four democratic transition. That is the birth and this show y-axis show the birth and death rate as per the thousands per year, and here how the red line shows that in the first stage both the birth rate and death rate is high. Then another stage, the birth rate is high and death rate is slowly down. And third stage, both the death rate is also high, low, and death rate also low. And the fourth stage, both the rates are flexible. Maybe both are the low numbers. So here the first stage. The first stage, high stationary or pre-industrial stage. What happened in the first stage? म्हणजे असे काय कारण होते की बर्थ रेट हा वाढलेला होता आणि डेथ रेट सुद्धा वाढलेला होता. इन फर्स्ट स्टेज द लिटल और नो फॅमिली प्लॅनिंग. Little or no family planning. Then parents have many children because few survive. Many children are needed to work on the land. Children are sign of virility. Some religious beliefs and cultural traditions encourage the large families. आता डेथ रेट पहिलं जे काही आपण लोकसंख्या संक्रमण सिद्धांत बघतो त्याच्यामध्ये आपण 4 स्टेजेस बघितलेले आहे. आता आपण बघितलं की पहिला जो स्टेज होता तर पहिल्या स्टेजमध्ये दोन्ही पण रेट वाढलेले होते. त्याचं कारण काय होतं की त्यावेळी कुठल्याही प्रकारचं फॅमिली प्लॅनिंग नव्हतं किंवा मग पॅरेंट्स जे आहेत तर त्यांच्याकडे असं कुठल्याच प्रकारची महागाई नव्हती, त्याच्यामुळे फ्यू सर्वाईव्ह होतं. देन मेनी चिल्ड्रन्स आर नीडेड टू वर्क ऑन द लँड. म्हणजे जमिनीमध्ये किंवा स्वतःच्या शेतामध्ये काम करण्यासाठी मग आपलेच मुलं असावेत किंवा मग जे काही रिलिजियस बिलीफ असेल त्यामुळे किंवा एक पारंपरिक दृष्ट्या त्यांना जास्त फॅमिली मोठी असावी, तर याचा जो काही उद्देश होता त्याच्यामुळे हाय बर्थ रेट हा वाढलेला होता. व्हॉट इज द कॉजेस ऑफ हाय डेथ रेट्स? द डिसीज अँड द प्लेग, cholera, etc. The disease are more, then the famine, are uncertain food supplies and poor diet. दुष्काळ सदृश्य परिस्थिती असेल किंवा मग फूड सप्लाय हा कमी असेल किंवा मग डाएट जो काही आहार आहे तर तो निकृष्ट दर्जाचा असेल तर याच्यामुळे हा डेथ रेट वाढलेला होता. पुअर हायजीन, नो पाईप क्लीन वॉटर और सेवेज डिस्पोजेबल. So this is how the population birth rate and death rate is high in the first stage of demographic transition. So what is the impact of that? This is shortly show the stage 1. Birth rate is high, death rate is high, the natural increase is low, fertility is high, infant mortality rate also high. For example, the various isolated communities in the least developed regions, for example, Africa, Warton region, for example, Afghanistan, Sudan, Angola, etc., are some example of the high birth rate and high death rate. Other characteristics of the stage 1 is to characterize the pre-industrial societies. Most of the population is rural and involved in the subsistence agriculture. We know that the most population of the rural is involved in the agricultural field. So this is how the first stage show that the birth rate and death rate is high. Second stage is early expanding or early industrial stage. This stage is called the rapid population growth or the population explosion. म्हणजे लोकसंख्येचा विस्फोट जो आहे तर तो या सेकंड स्टेज मध्ये झालेला आहे. सो इन each describe this stage is the population explosion. High birth rate has stage 1. स्टेज 1 मध्ये ज्याप्रमाणे हाय बर्थ रेट होता त्याच पद्धतीने हाय बर्थ रेट होता, but the falling death rate. So this stage is high birth rate and falling death rate. That's why the population is increased day by day. Improve the medical. What is the cause to the high birth rate? Improve the medical care, for example, vaccination, hospitals, doctors, new drugs, and scientific inventions. Improve the sanitation and water supply. Improvement of the food production in the term of quality and quantity. Improve the transport to move the food and doctors. A decrease in the child mortality. So what is the causes to high birth rate in the next stage or second stage of population explosion? याच्यामध्ये जे काही मेडिकल केअर आहे तर त्याचं इम्प्रुव्हमेंट झालं होतं. त्याच्यामध्ये वॅक्सिनेशन असेल, हॉस्पिटल्स असतील, डॉक्टर्स असतील यांचं, किंवा सायंटिफिक इन्व्हेन्शन झालेलं होतं. त्यानंतर सॅनिटेशन, स्वच्छतेच्या सुविधा असतील किंवा वॉटर सप्लाय असेल याच्यामध्ये इम्प्रुव्हमेंट झालेलं होतं. फूड प्रोडक्शन जे आहे तर ते क्वालिटेटिव्हली म्हणजे गुणवत्तापूर्ण फूड होतं आणि जे काही क्वांटिटी आहे तर क्वांटिटी सुद्धा वाढलेली होती. Then the transport is available for move to food or doctor also, and the mortality rate of the child is decreasing in the particular stage. So population growth is rapid in this period. For example, we have to shortly describe the stage 2. Stage 2, birth rate high, death rate decreasing, it means low. Natural increase increasing, fertility and infant mortality rate, both rate are high. For example, sub-Saharan Africa. Other characteristics of the stage 2 is characterize the post-industrial societies. Most of the population in the rural, but the urbanization is increasing rapidly. म्हणजे जरी रुरल पॉप्युलेशन असली तरी जे काही अर्बनायझेशन आहे, शहरीकरण आहे तर ते वाढत होतं. डिपेंडन्सी लोड बिगिन टू इन्क्रीज द रॅपिडली ॲज द यंग कोहर्ट who is greater than 15 years old begin to dominate the proportion of the particular population. So stage 2, early expanding and the early industrial. The birth rate high, death rate lower, natural increasing rapidly, fertility rate high, infant mortality rate is declining. So here, for example, the many African countries or the Middle East countries are here. This is how the rate. Then stage 3. Stage 3 is the late expanding or the late industrial stage. Falling birth rate and death rate also low. It means both the rate are low in the third stage. So the why the falling birth rate is there? The family planning is utilized here. The contraceptives, abortions, sterilization and other government incentives are adopted by the population. म्हणजे या थर्ड स्टेज मध्ये जे काही डेव्हलपमेंट किंवा इनोव्हेशन आहे ते जास्त झालेलं आहे आणि फॅमिली प्लॅनिंग असेल किंवा मग अबॉर्शन असेल या कंडिशन गव्हर्नमेंट इंटेन्सिव्ह आहेत तर ते सगळे लोकांनी त्याचा फायदा घेतलेला, त्याच्यामुळे जे काही बर्थ रेट आहे आणि डेथ रेट आहे तो कमी झाले. A lower infant mortality rates means the less pressure to have the children. Increase the mechanization and the industrialization means the less need for the labor. Increase desire for the material possessions and less desire for the large families. Emancipation of the woman. Why the death rate is low as stage 2? We know that in the stage 2 also the death rate is low. And the population growth still growing but slowly. The population is growing but the rate of the population growing is slow. So what is the scenario of the particular stage 3? The birth rate decreasing, death rate low, natural increase high, but the way decreasing. Fertility rate and the infant mortality rate also decreasing. For example, South and East Asia. Birth control is introduced and begin wide social acceptance. Social and economic issues begin to address. The dependency load is still large due to the large young cohort group. For example, we know that after 15 years. So, this is how the birth rate decreasing in a manageable level. The death rate increase low, it means decreasing style. Natural increase decreasing sharply. Fertility rate also decreasing sharply. Infant mortality also lowered. And here the Latin America tiger economies are taken to part. So other characteristics of the particular third stage is the end of population explosion. We know that which stage is called the population explosion. This question is randomly asked in the examination, previous examination. That is, which stage of demographic transition called the population explosion or explosion stage. That is the second stage. So ends of the population explosion in the third stage. The people choose the smaller families due to the many social and economic factors. Urbanization dominates because the rural condition is not very good. The population stabilization begins. The population continues to grow due to the large young population reaching the childbearing age. So this is how the third stage of population. Another and last stage of population is the fourth stage of population, low stationary or low fluctuating stage. Low stationary and low fluctuating stage. That is, the birth rate is low and also the death rate also the low in the condition. So how the birth rate is low? What is the causes to low the birth rate in the particular stage 4? Fertility rate plunges to below the replacement rate because the valuation of woman beyond childbearing and the motherhood become important. Increasing value is placed on the maternal good over family size in modern industrialization society or industrialized society. Widespread choice of the contraception by family. This is how the birth rate is low. And what is the causes of the death rate low? The child mortality reduced. The life expectancy increased due to the capital investment in the medical technology, widespread the knowledge and healthy diet and lifestyle. Population growth. This is how the population growth is slow or declining due to the aging society. So this is In shortly, we can say that in the stage 4, birth rate low, death rate also low with the spurt as a result of aging society. Natural increase low, or maybe it is negative sign. Then the infant mortality rate is low. The fertility rate is near or below the replacement rate. Then for example, the region which is MEDs. What is my mean by the MEDs? For example, more developed countries. MEDs stand for more developed countries, China, etc. More developed countries, when we describe the more developed countries that are less than the 20% over all the world. So other characteristics of the stage 4 is population growth no longer a social and economic issues. In this particular stage 4, population is decreasing. It means slow rate of population. The birth and death rate fluctuate minimally, and the natural increase stops. And over while urban society, dependency load is small, large working age group. So this is how the stage 4 is the low birth rate and death rate also low, but the low birth rate and low death rate are in the fluctuating manner or low stationary manner. This is the theory of demographic transition. So in this part we have described the demographic transition, the environmental value methods. In that we have to describe how the environmental valuation that analyze the empirical estimate of the environmental values. Then we have to describe the total economic values, that is stand for TEV. Then how the environmental valuation in there. There are 3 categories